Many people unknowingly encourage others to treat them poorly. Throughout decades of clinical psychology practice, a recurring theme emerged. Individuals complained about lacking respect from bosses, family members, partners, or friends, seeking ways to change these people's behavior. After extensive observation, a crucial realization became clear: you cannot force respect from others. However, you can eliminate behaviors that encourage disrespectful treatment, behaviors most people engage in regularly without awareness. This isn't about feel-good strategies or positive affirmations. These insights come from observing relationship patterns across thousands of cases over many years. The truth may be uncomfortable because it requires self-examination rather than blaming others. First principle: eliminate unnecessary explanations for your choices. When you justify decisions to those who have no legitimate authority over them, you communicate that you need their approval to proceed. Psychological research demonstrates that over-justifying correlates with appearing less confident and authoritative. Explaining yourself to people without valid reason to question you diminishes your position in a relationship. Consider an accomplished professional who couldn't understand her mother's continued dismissive treatment. Whenever questioned about career moves or parenting decisions, she would defend herself extensively with evidence and reasoning. The very act of explaining perpetuated the problem, signaling she needed validation. After learning to respond simply with, "because I decided to," without further elaboration, the dynamic transformed completely. Her mother eventually became respectful for the first time in memory. Second principle: embrace strategic silence. Not the angry, resentful kind, but genuine silence. When faced with disrespect, immediate response isn't required or even advisable. Studies indicate that instant reactions to provocation make people appear reactive and less authoritative compared to those who pause deliberately. Silence represents active choice, conveying refusal to engage in destructive patterns. A professional repeatedly interrupted in meetings by a dismissive colleague tried various approaches: assertion, confrontation, humor, without success. The solution was counterintuitive. When interrupted, simply stop speaking, turn, and maintain eye contact without saying anything. After just 5 seconds of this deliberate silence, the room stilled, the interrupter faltered, and the behavior never recurred. The interruptions had relied on provoking frustrated reactions. Removing that fuel eliminated the behavior entirely. By withholding the expected reaction and maintaining silence, she eliminated what he sought from the interaction. Third principle: accept that you may need to end the relationship. This sounds drastic, but it underpins everything else. When you remain in relationships characterized by persistent disrespect, you signal that maintaining the connection matters more than being treated well. The other person recognizes this, whether consciously or not, and behaves accordingly. This doesn't mean abandoning people at the first disagreement. Rather, it means establishing genuine boundaries that you don't continuously adjust. A personal example illustrates this painfully: an estranged relationship with a son stemming from criticism of his wife. When confronted, pride prevented acknowledgement of wrongdoing, leading instead to defensiveness and justification, precisely the behaviors to avoid. He eventually ceased contact and has maintained that boundary for nearly 2 decades. While heartbreaking, his decision commands respect. He prioritized his self-respect and marriage over a harmful family relationship, demonstrating the clarity that comes from knowing when to enforce boundaries. Fourth principle: focus on what you'll accept rather than trying to change others' perceptions. Most people make this fundamental error, obsessing over making others respect them, recognize their value, or validate their worth. This approach is completely inverted. You cannot manipulate someone's thoughts or perceptions. What you can control is the behavior you permit in your presence. When a client asked how to stop her husband from dismissing her views, the solution wasn't arguing or persuading for hours. Instead, she learned to simply leave the room immediately upon being dismissed. No explanation, no announcement. Initially, he was shocked, then angry, but eventually he began monitoring his own behavior. She hadn't changed his opinion. She'd changed what she would tolerate, which transformed the entire dynamic. Fifth principle: examine your own self-respect. This is the uncomfortable truth from decades of clinical observation. Those who genuinely respect themselves rarely experience chronic disrespect from others. Not because disrespectful people don't exist, they certainly do, but because people with authentic self-respect don't remain in those situations. They don't tolerate mistreatment, make excuses for it, or spend years hoping for change. They withdraw, establish distance, and demonstrate their worth through choices and actions. If you repeatedly find yourself disrespected, the question isn't about blame. That would be overly simple and harsh. Instead, examine honestly why you remain. What benefit keeps you there despite the harm? Fear of solitude, financial dependence, family expectations, optimism that circumstances will improve. These are real and understandable. Yet they also function as constraints that trap you in harmful dynamics. Eventually, you must determine what matters more, the relationship or your self-respect. In the estrangement described earlier, pride was chosen over relationship. The son chose differently, selecting self-respect. Though that choice has meant nearly 2 decades of separation, the reasoning behind it is clear. Given current wisdom, different choices would be made, apology, change, but that understanding didn't exist then. After a century of life and countless conversations about disrespect, this much is certain: you cannot force respect from others. However, you can cultivate such thorough self-respect that disrespect finds no foothold. You can stop justifying yourself to those who haven't earned explanations. You can master remaining silent while others expect reactions. You can release what doesn't serve you. You can monitor what you accept rather than attempting to alter others' beliefs. This isn't presented as easy. Personal failures in these areas persisted for decades and continue in some ways. But the sharing happens anyway, with hope that others might listen, save themselves wasted time, and perhaps reach out to estranged loved ones before opportunities disappear.